Hello guys, till now we created a program which executes and providing some inputs, right? So is it accepting any inputs?
No,
No,
sir.
it is not accepting any inputs. In the program, we are populating some default values, right? So we are not giving an option to the user, right, to change the data to enter different values as input, right? For example, if you take some uh, application like IRCTC, it will provide you the option, right, to select source and destination, date, right, type of the ticket. There is a input screen, right, where you can enter your choice and click on submit. So it will show the results depends on the input provided by the user, right?
Sir.
So in programs also we have to provide that input option for the user so that user can enter different inputs to get the results. For example, some HR is processing employee payroll, right? So that resource want to process all the employees one by one by checking all the data. If you don't provide an option to enter the employee ID, right? He cannot enter different employee IDs, right? He cannot process different employees data, right? So for that reason, we provide inputs, user inputs. Most of the programs should have user inputs where user can enter the data and click on submit or execute to get the relevant output, right? As of now, we are just using some hard-coded values to populate the data and display the output. So now we'll create a program to accept inputs from the user and display the result according to the user inputs. So what is the keyword to define the user inputs? Okay, so parameters are used to define the user inputs and it can accept a single value as a input. It cannot accept multiple values. It can accept only single value. For example, there is a parameter called employee ID. It can accept one employee ID at a time. Okay, we cannot enter multiple employee IDs. For multiple employee IDs, we have a different input option. We'll discuss that later, right? So parameter can be optional or mandatory. So what do you mean by optional and mandatory? So in some programs, we restrict the user to enter input value Without entering that value, he cannot proceed further. User cannot execute the program because that input is mandatory, right? Without that input, the program cannot execute. Optional means that input is optional. If user did not enter any value, right, it will take some default values and execute the program. So let's define the parameter. So what is the transaction code to create the program?
SC38.
SC38.
Yes, SC38. Go to SC38 and let's create a program. For now, saving in local object means local package. So going forward after few classes, I'll show you how to use proper package names. Now, what is the keyword to define the parameter?
Parameter.
Parameter.
Parameters.
Parameters. You can use chain operator to define multiple parameters. One program might contain multiple parameters, multiple inputs. Okay. Name of the parameter. This can be any name. Depends on the requirement. We assign some proper name for the parameter. For example, uh, if you are creating input option for employee ID to enter employee ID, I'll define like this: p underscore empid. This can be any name. You can give any name, but some meaningful name. By looking at this data object or parameter, you should be able to identify, okay, since it is starting with P, this might be a parameter, right? And there is EMP that means it might be parameter for employee ID. We should be able to identify it when we are looking through the code, right? When we are going through the code, whenever you see this value or data object, you should be able to identify easily. That's why we use some naming standards. Otherwise, it can take any name. Okay, clear? For variables, we are taking LV. For work area, we are taking WA, right? We are following some naming standards. Otherwise, we can enter any name. We can give any name. Type, what is the type of this parameter? Employee ID means, for example,
Character.
Character.
character length 10. It is very similar to variable declaration, right? Or instead of this, you can also enter like this. Remove the length keyword. Okay, you can also define like this. So I defined the parameter. This is how we define the parameter. So let's create a program uh, like to adding two numbers and display the output. Now tell me, what is the input for this program?
Numbers. Giving numbers.
Yeah, number one, number two numbers we need, right? So this program is for adding two numbers and display the output. Now what is the input for this program? Two numbers, number one and number two, right? For example, 10 and 20. These are the inputs, right? So can we execute this program without these two values? Is it going to display any output?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
These are mandatory, right? Now let's create parameters for accepting two numbers. For example, p underscore value 1 type. What is the type of number? Let's take integer.
Integer.
N.
Type I. Let's take integer because n, see, usually we don't use for calculations, right? Because it won't contains positive, negative parameters, right? Number type we usually use for phone numbers, zip codes, postal codes, these kind of values. Okay. Now we have two parameters. Let's see how these will be displayed. Check the syntax, activate the program. Okay. Now execute the program. See, always remember when you are creating a program, right? First, design the selection screen. Selection screen contains user inputs. That means parameters. First, test, are these parameters working properly or not? Execute and check. Now, two parameters are displaying on the selection screen. What do you call this? What do you call this screen?
Selection screen.
Selection
Selection
screen.
screen.
Selection screen contains the input parameters. Okay, we call this as selection screen, designing the selection screen. Okay, now I have two parameters. So when I'm executing, first it is displaying the user inputs, input 1 and input 2. Once user entered the input and click on execute, then the actual program will execute. The actual business logic will execute, depends on these inputs. Now what is the name it is displaying here? pval1, pval2, right?
Yes, sir.
Now tell me, does user have knowledge on this program, the code what you are writing?
No, sir.
No,
No, sir.
they don't know. No. They don't know anything about the code and what is pval1, pval2, right? If they look at this, they may not be able to understand. So what is the value? Because when user executes the program, he can directly see the selection screen. He can't see this program and everything. Okay, when user executes the program, it will directly opens this selection screen. But when they look at these names, is it clear for anyone? Like what is pval1, pval2? No,
No,
right?
sir.
It is
No, sir.
difficult to understand what is the value that he needs to enter here, right? So for that reason, we don't use these technical names. We use labels here with the plain text. How to define the labels? Go to the program. So for the selection screen parameters, we define this. Go to text elements. You can see this text elements button. Or in go to menu, you can see text elements. Go to text elements and selection text. Go to selection text. So here we can enter selection text of the two selection screen parameters. What is p value 1?
Number
I'm
one.
entering like that,
Uh,
value 1, value 2. Save it and activate. Go back and execute the program. I think there is a typing issue. Value 1, value 2. Now it is clear, right, for the user. He can understand, like he or she can understand, like what is the value he needs to enter. Is it a value, name, right? What is this input? It is clear now, right? We have to provide the labels. Always we have to provide the labels by using which option? Select text elements
text
and
element.
selection text. Okay, and you should activate this, and you should activate this selection text. Now we have inputs, but what about the output? We'll use a different concept. Like what is the output? uh, we are adding two numbers, right? Number 1 and number 2. What would be the output?
Output.
One integer value. One integer value. How to define it? We cannot directly use it, right, without defining. How to define that? Data,
data and
for
a
example,
variable
LV
name,
underscore output type. What is the type you have to take?
integer.
Integer.
Integer type, because you are adding these two numbers and passing that output to this output variable, right? For that reason, I'm taking the same data type. Now, how to write this? LV underscore output
Equal to
equal to P underscore
is for val1 plus val2.
val1 plus P underscore val2. Now, is it going to display the output?
No, sir. Right state.
Yes, we just calculated the value and populated the value to the variable, but we are not displaying it using write statement or CL demo output. You can use
CL
anything.
demo.
Let's use CL demo output.
Demo
Display. Actually, it's a class method. Like I'll explain this after few classes. Just for now,
CL.
just use it. That's it. Activate. Now execute the program. Now user can directly see this screen, selection screen. Here user needs to enter the values. For example, 10, 30. So expected output is 40. So where it is going to display the output? In output screen. Okay. In output screen, it is going to display the output. Output is 40. So where these parameters are being displayed? In the selection screen. This is the selection screen. Okay. Since we have taken integer type, it should accept negative values also. Okay. This is how we can use parameters. Depends on our requirement. We can define multiple parameters. One for numbers, other one for name. Right. Depends on the requirement. We are going to define the parameters. Right. It is very similar to variable declaration, like how we provide data type and length, and everything is same. Only thing is keyword is different, parameters. Now let me execute again. Can I execute the program? I'm not entering any user inputs. Can I execute it?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Actually, it will allow, it will take as zero values, right? And it will display the output as zero. But that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yes, sir.
So since this program is to add two numbers, we should enforce, we should ask the user to enter input values, number one and number two, right? But currently it is not, it is executing even without entering any value, right? How can we,
Yes, sir.
how can we restrict user, right, executing without entering the value? Like how can we restrict that behavior? So we have a keyword in parameters, that is obligatory. Obligatory. If you use this obligatory parameter, obligatory keyword to the parameter, right, it won't allow the user to execute the program without entering these input values. Let's try execute now. I've added obligatory and activated it. Can you observe this asterisk symbol, red color asterisk symbol?
Yes, sir.
Previously it is not there, now it is there. Wherever you see this asterisk symbol for the input fields in SAP, that means that is a mandatory value.
Mandatory.
Without entering that value, you cannot proceed further, right? Now let me try to execute. So what it is saying, make an entry in mandatory field value 1. Okay, I've entered value 1. Make an entry in mandatory field value 2. It is not allowing to execute without entering any of these values. So once you enter the user input, then it is allowing to execute. Since these two are mandatory inputs, how can you set that mandatory behavior? Using obligatory parameter, right? Let's say in some cases, or maybe in most of the cases, the user want to see some default value here. You don't want to enter the input all the time, right? You wanted to see some default values here, so that he can execute the program, and without entering the user inputs, he can execute the program. So how to provide default values in the user inputs? That is by using default keyword. That is by using default keyword. Okay, default, and the provide the value 10, and here also default and provide some value 11. Okay, now it is displaying default values. Without entering any value, we can execute, right? Or if you want to change the values, you can change it. You can change the default values and execute, right? Why we use these default values is, in general, the program might contain 10-15 input options, right? User is not interested to enter all the inputs, right? Because for most of the inputs, uh, values might be common, so that they don't want to enter repeatedly whenever they execute the program. They ask us to default the value, provide some default value. If there is any change, we'll change it later. We'll change it when executing it. Okay. So by using default keyword, we can provide the default values in the selection screen inputs. Okay. Clear? You can use obligatory or default keywords, depends on the requirement. You don't need to use both together. Okay. You can also only use default keyword without yeah, using obligatory. Clear for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, so we can also design the selection screen to improve the look and feel, of the selection screen, or we can also provide some text here. So how to design the selection screen using some borders like that? We have a keyword selection screen, begin of block, selection screen, begin of block. Provide some name for this block. I'm just providing B1, selection screen, begin of block B1 with frame. I want to display in a frame, that inputs I want to display in the frame. For that, we use this frame option, and I'll close this selection screen, end of block B1. I'm closing this. So it is optional. This is nothing to do with business logic, right? It is just to improve the look and feel of the selection screen. Clear? Selection screen begin of block and selection screen end of block. Now you can see a frame, right? Around these parameters, a box is being displayed. So you can separate different input options using the selection screen parameters, selection screen begin of block and end of block. Okay. Going forward, you can understand when we create multiple parameters. And here is it displaying any text in the title? We can also add title using title keyword. Title text hyphen 001, for example 001. What is this text hyphen 001? Again, go back to text elements, text symbols, click on text symbols. Here you can maintain the text, you can maintain the text which you need to repeatedly use in the program. In the text symbols, what you can maintain, some text or messages which you want to use it in the program. For example, I'm maintaining some text here. Enter numbers, press enter. It will automatically assign one number for this text. One is the number for this text. Activate this, go back. And how to use the text in the program? Using text hyphen 1, 001. It's a 3-digit number. You have to use zeros as well. Text hyphen 001. Now, whatever the text you maintained in the text symbols, that will be displayed here. When you use text, how can you call the text in the program? Using text hyphen that three digit number. Okay. Now execute it, activate the program and execute. So here it is displaying that text. It would be helpful for the user, right? We can provide the text to provide some guidance to the user what he needs to enter here, or is there any inputs he needs. Okay, clear? So selection screen begin of block with frame title, that is the keyword. Why we use this? If you want to design the selection screen when we have multiple parameters, if you want to keep few of them in one block and few of them is in other block, we can use the selection screen begin of block and end of block. For example, let me show it here. I'll keep one parameter in the one block and other parameter in the other block. I'm closing the first selection screen block, and then again now I am naming this as B2 because B1 is already being used. B2, you can give any name. Okay, I'm using B1 B2. Now observe how it will display. It is displaying in two different blocks, right? You can also change the title text. How to change the title text? You need to use a different text here for the block 2, where you can define the text in text elements, text symbols. You can define the text. For example, value 1, enter, value 2. Activate this text. For second text, number is 2. Change the number here. Text hyphen number, text number. So that's how we can call the text. Number 1, value 1 and value 2. Right? You can design the selection screen like that using the selection screen blocks. Is it clear for everyone? I'm removing this. B1. Is it clear for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, can we add colors?
No, not for parameters. You can display in colors using write statement. But we can add some special symbols, icons. So we'll see that later. Okay. Is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'll stop here for today. Tomorrow we'll work on a few more conditions, or we'll directly jump into data dictionary where we create the tables. Okay.